Well, if you're like us, then you've noticed the price at the grocery store just keeps going up and up. And it's becoming increasingly difficult to make healthy, hearty meals on a budget. Well, today I've got you covered because I'm going to show you how I'm going to make 5 wholesome and delicious meals for our family of 5 for under $50 total. Today's video is in collaboration with my good friend Kelsey over at Seed & Sparrow Homestead, so she's also going to be doing 5 budget-friendly meals. So when you're done watching this video, make sure you head over to her channel. I'll put the link down below, and you can get ideas for 5 more delicious, wholesome meals that you can make on a budget. So one of the ways that you can really utilize your budget wisely and help to make your money go further is to meal plan meals that are going to utilize some of the same components for multiple meals. So for instance, the first meal we're going to make today is going to be chicken and mashed potato bowls. Obviously that's going to use mashed potatoes, but I'm also going to make enough mashed potatoes for our next meal, which is going to be a shepherd's, or in this case, because we're using ground beef, cottage pie. So let's get started on the first meal and I'll show you how we're going to do this. I'm going to be making these chicken breasts into chicken nuggets to use in our chicken bowls. I am using chicken breasts for this, but if you really wanted to save money, you could buy whole chickens and piece them out yourselves. These originally were whole chickens that we processed right here on our property. However, I've already pieced them out into chicken breasts. So I'm just going to chop these up into bite-sized pieces and then we'll get them breaded up. Now that we have our chicken all chopped up into chunks, I'm going to start preparing our breading stations. So I have 3 shallow dishes. We're going to fill one with milk, one with flour, and one with a flour and panko breadcrumb mixture. Now I'm going to season the breadcrumbs and the flour. I'm going to use a little bit of granulated onion powder, a little bit of black pepper, some paprika, some salt. We like to use Redmond's real salt. And I'm going to put a little bit of granulated garlic in too. All right, I'm just going to mix this real quick. The chicken is going to go in the flour first, just the plain flour. I want to get that all nice and coated. And I should actually move these around. I didn't do them in the right order. So flour first, and then you're going to move it on into the milk. And from the milk, we're going to bring it over here to the breadcrumbs. And then we'll just repeat this process until all of our little chicken nuggets are well coated. You can also use almond flour if you'd like to in this mixture. I actually think that gives it a really nice crunch. Now that our chicken is breaded, we're going to start on our potatoes before we actually fry the chicken up. I'm going to use our entire bag of potatoes because remember, we're going to use these for the mashed potato chicken bowls and also for our cottage pie. So let's get these prepped and into the water. So if you stick around to the end of this video, I'm going to show you a list of how much all of these ingredients would cost if you went and bought them at Walmart. Not because I'm sponsored by Walmart or anything like that, just simply because there's Walmarts pretty much all over the country. So I figured that would be a pretty general price point for us to be able to show how to do these meals on a budget. Of course, a lot of these things are things I already had in the house. In fact, we only had to go buy maybe like 2 or 3 of these items to be able to film this today. So some of the things aren't going to be exactly the same as what I'm showing you from Walmart, but it's pretty similar. I'm also going to give you a few tips about how you could save even more money as we go. And of course, the things I'm going to show you in the basket might not be organic, but whenever possible, I like to choose organic product. But I will show you a comparison for what the price would be if you actually went and bought this organic. So now we're going to cube up our potatoes and get them into our boiling water. Our potatoes are boiling away in the pot now, so while that's happening, I'm going to fry up our chicken pieces. I've got my cast iron frying pan heating up here on the stove, and I'm gonna add in some avocado oil. This is my preferred oil for frying in. It's probably one of the healthiest that you can use, so that's what I'm sticking with. Come over here and let's get these started. You don't need too much, just enough to cover the bottom of the pan like that and go about halfway up the piece of chicken. I'm just gonna put my chicken right on in there. And you wanna be careful not to crowd them. You wanna make sure you watch your chicken. You just wanna go a couple minutes on each side until it's nice and golden brown. All right, I'm gonna test the potatoes. They are nice and soft, so they're ready to go in our mixer, and we're gonna make our mashed potatoes. Just gonna transfer the potatoes into our mixing bowl. Pretty much the only thing I'm gonna do to these mashed potatoes is put in butter, milk, and salt and pepper. We like our potatoes on the buttery side, so I'm gonna add pretty much a whole stick of butter here. You can do your mashed potatoes however you like them. I'm just placing the chicken on a cooling rack with a paper towel underneath so it doesn't drip oil onto my board here. But this is the way I like to do it so it stays nice and crispy. We're just gonna make sure that these are the proper temperature, which I probably should have done before I took them out of the pan, but we're just gonna double check. And they are, they're perfect. First thing we need to do is heat up our corn and make our gravy. Now, one of the things you can do to save extra money in the kitchen is to make your own chicken broth. I did include chicken broth in the price for our shopping list, but if you want to make it at home, that will save you even more money and cut your bill at the grocery store. I don't usually use a recipe for gravy. I will just add in a tablespoon or two of butter, let that melt down, add in a tablespoon or two of flour, stir it all together, let the flour cook a little bit, and then add in my chicken broth. Then we're gonna taste it and see if it needs anything else and what we wanna put in for our seasonings. I had my broth in the freezer, so it's still a little bit frozen, but that's okay. We're just gonna thaw it out here with the gravy. We have all of our components cooked and ready to go, so I'm gonna assemble a bowl and show you how delicious this is. The first thing we're gonna do is add some mashed potatoes to our bowl. I'm gonna add some corn. This was just frozen corn that I heated up with some salt, pepper, and butter. Now I'm gonna put some of these chicken nuggets on top. Move over Chick-fil-A and KFC. These nuggets are delicious. Now we're gonna put some gravy on top. You could do a beef gravy too. I don't have any beef broth, so we're doing chicken. And then we're just gonna top it with some shredded cheese. All right, we're gonna give it a try. The trick is to get a little bit of everything in each bite. So this is gonna be a big bite. These are really good. It's delicious, actually. The nice thing about this meal is we only use 2 chicken breasts, and it's gonna feed our whole family of 5. Because we're making it go a long way by adding all these other components. All right, I hope you like this dish, and let's move on to meal number 2. Now we're gonna start on meal number 2, and this I'm actually going to meal prep, and it's gonna be our dinner for tomorrow. But I wanna get that started right away because we're gonna use a lot of the leftovers that we have from our chicken bowls. So this meal is going to be a shepherd's or cottage pie, depending on what you call it. We're gonna use ground beef. So the first thing we're gonna do is dice up an onion and some garlic, and we're gonna get that sauteing in a pan. We're gonna put a little bit of butter in our pan, and we're gonna move these over. I'm just gonna do half an onion. You could do a whole onion. That would be absolutely fine. All right, so we're gonna put in a tablespoon or 2 of butter. And let's get that onion in, and then we'll chop up the garlic. Okay, we're gonna chop up the garlic. I will put a recipe down below. I'm probably gonna use like 3 or 4 cloves of garlic, but you can do as many as you want, or none if you don't like garlic. I don't know who you are who doesn't like garlic, but I guess it's possible. Anyway, this recipe is pretty easy. You kind of go where the spirit leads, and you could follow the recipe, or you can make it your own. On our shopping list at Walmart, I just used regular conventional ground beef, but we actually get our ground beef from a local farm that we know. It's Red Hill Harvest, and I believe they ship. I'm gonna link them down below. Their grass-fed organic beef is pretty much the same price as the regular conventional ground beef at Walmart. So just a little tip for you, if you want some good quality ground beef, this is a place to go. Or check out your local farms and see if there's any farms around you where you can buy beef straight from the farmer. You honestly save so much money that way, especially if you wanted to buy like a whole half of a cow. That really makes the price per pound much cheaper than anything you're gonna find in the grocery store. Now we're gonna start seasoning up our meat. I'm going to do about a teaspoon of herbes de Provence. You could do Italian seasonings if you wanted. You could just do plain thyme. When you're trying to cook on a budget, it's good to use what you have. Any of those seasonings would be great. I'm just using herbes de Provence. I'm going to do about a teaspoon of liquid aminos for a little bit of flavor. A teaspoon to a tablespoon. Same thing with the Worcestershire sauce. About a tablespoon of Worcestershire. Then for just a hint of sweetness, we're gonna do about a teaspoon of coconut sugar. That just adds to the depth of flavor. Now another swap I'm going to make from my normal recipe, I would usually do tomato paste. I don't have any tomato paste on hand right now, but we just made some pizza last night and I have a little bit of tomato sauce left. So in the spirit of budget saving meals, we're gonna use some tomato sauce instead. I'm gonna add in about a 1/4 cup, I think. Now I'm gonna add in about a cup to a cup and a half of chicken stock. You could use beef stock if that's what you have. It's a little bit more than a cup and a half, that's fine. You ready? I'm gonna add in all the leftover corn from the chicken and potato bowls we just made earlier. And then you can add peas, but I think I'm just gonna leave it just like this. Our next step is to make a slurry, which sounds a little fancy, but it's not. It's just a mixture that is going to thicken up our base here for our cottage pie. So I'm gonna show you how to do that. In this jar, I have about a tablespoon of water. And I'm gonna add to that about a tablespoon of tapioca starch. If you have cornstarch, that works too. I just don't keep cornstarch in my house. So we're gonna go with the tapioca starch. You just wanna mix it up. Make sure you don't have any clumps in there. And you wanna do this outside of your cottage pie base. You don't wanna mix this right into the base as it's cooking. It will get really clumpy and be a mess. All right, so now we're gonna pour this over here into our pan. All right, that looks beautiful. It's thickened up nicely. Now I'm just going to taste it and see if we need to add any salt or pepper. Use a tiny bit of salt and pepper, not much. More pepper than salt. And just a teeny bit of our Redmond salt. it up and we'll taste it one more time. Should be perfect now. All right, I'm gonna try it one more time. It's really nice. It has a good depth of flavor. The salt really picked up the other flavors a lot, and the pepper added a little kick that it needed. That's good. We're gonna add on our mashed potatoes now. All right, so I have these mashed potatoes that we just used for our chicken bowls, and we're gonna use the leftovers to put on top of this. I kind of want to make them go a little bit further. I think I'm gonna add, I have a little bit of sour cream in my refrigerator, and I think you don't have to do this. It's not part of the recipe. I'm just gonna try and make them stretch further. You could also add in heavy cream or a little bit of milk, even yogurt, some plain yogurt. But I just wanna loosen them up a little tiny bit and make them go a little bit further so that they work for the whole top of this. So I'm gonna grab some sour cream and mix it in. I think I'm gonna do maybe like a quarter of a cup, half a cup, not quite.
It's not gonna be too sour.
It's not gonna be too sour. It's gonna be good. Cameraman's complaining. He doesn't trust me. You should trust me after all these years of cooking for you. Try and do it carefully because I don't want them to just sink down in. Let's see, we'll just do some like cross hatching. I think that would be pretty. You could also get really fancy and pipe these on. We're not fancy in this house, so that's not happening. That'd be pretty. I have some cheese that I have left over from our chicken and mashed potato bowls, and I'm just gonna add that right on. All right, this is all ready for tomorrow. It's completely meal prepped. All we have to do is cover it up, throw it in the refrigerator, and tomorrow we'll take it out and bake it at 375 until it's warmed all the way through and nice and golden brown on the top, and our dinner's ready for us. All right, now I'm gonna work on meal prepping meal number 3. This meal is gonna be white chicken chili. I'm gonna use the other half of the onion we have from our cottage pie. And then this morning, I actually went ahead and started cooking a whole 2-pound bag of beans, and I'll tell you how I did that. I just rinsed all the beans to prep them, then put them in my Dutch oven, covered them with water, put in a halved onion and a couple cloves of garlic, and I let that simmer all day long until the beans were nice and tender. Then I seasoned them with a little salt and pepper. I'm gonna chop up my onion and garlic, and I'll get that sauteing in a pan. This is one of our favorite meals to have when the weather gets chilly outside. It is so nice and hearty and warm, and it's just a cozy meal that feels good this time of year. Especially good if you can make a nice crusty loaf of bread to go with it. Am I right, Ethan? He approves of the crusty bread. All right, we're gonna put this garlic in. Usually about 4 to 5 cloves are good, but go where the spirit leads you. You can never have too much garlic. Put a little butter in there. And we're just gonna saute these until they get softened. All right, I am gonna scoop some of these beans out and put them in with our onion and garlic mixture. Be a little bit kinder on our budget and our waste. We're not gonna be using cream cheese or heavy cream to thicken this up. I'm just gonna be using the beans. The first 2 cups of beans plus our onions, garlic, and chicken stock are all gonna go into our blender, and they're gonna make a nice creamy base for us without having to use any kind of a heavy cream or cream cheese. Make sure you're extra careful when you're blending something hot in the Vitamix. You don't want it to splatter out at you. I'm just gonna cover it up with this towel and always start out really low. Also, by the way, if you have cream cheese and you'd like to add it, now would be the time to do it so it gets nice and blended up with everything else. It looks good. I'm actually gonna set this to the side because we're gonna deal with the chicken now. I have another chicken breast here, and we're just going to use one. A little bit goes a long way because you have all those beans as well. And I'm just going to chop it up into small pieces. Now I'm going to add just a tiny bit of flour, maybe about 2 tablespoons to the chicken to coat it. And then I'll toss that up and throw it in our hot pan with a little bit of butter. All right, the chicken's still going, but I'm gonna start adding in the spices. Put in a little bit of chili powder, cumin, oregano, a little bit of some crushed red pepper flakes, if you like it spicy, onion powder, and garlic powder. Now I'm gonna add back in the broth mixture that we blended up in our Vitamix. I'm gonna let that simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes until the chicken is completely cooked and all the flavors are combined. Then we'll add in our beans and our corn. All right, now that this has been simmering for about 15 minutes, we're gonna add in the rest of the ingredients. I'm gonna put in a cup of frozen corn, and I'm gonna add in 2 more cups of our beans. If you had fresh cilantro, that would be delicious on here. All right, I'm gonna give this a try and see if we need some salt, which we probably will. Yep, need salt. All right, this white chicken chili is finished. I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the refrigerator, and we're gonna enjoy this the day after tomorrow, and it's gonna taste even better because all of the flavors will meld and marry together. And then I'll go ahead and serve it with a dollop of sour cream. You could do a wedge of lime. If you have fresh cilantro, that would be delicious. If you had avocado, you could slice that on top. And you could even serve it all over rice, which would make it go even further and stretch your budget even more. All right, let's give this a try. It's really hot. It's really good. I like how the lime, it adds just a little bit of extra acidity, and it needed that to cut through the heaviness of that creamy broth. You don't really notice that there's no cream cheese or heavy cream in it. The beans do a really good job making that creamy broth. It's really good. If you haven't tried white chicken chili, I would definitely give this a try. It's a nice hearty meal, and it's surprisingly healthy. All right, on to meal number 4. Today's meal is going to be homemade tacos. We're gonna do some homemade tortilla shells. I'm gonna make some refried beans. To do that, we're gonna use up all those lovely beans we made yesterday for our white chicken chili. Then we're gonna fry up some taco meat and get out all the fixins. For our tortilla shells, I'm gonna put all of my dry ingredients in a bowl. That's going to be flour. We need 1.5 cups. I'm just using the typical organic flour that I get at Costco. We need 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. And a teaspoon of salt. Just gonna give that a little toss with my fork. Make sure we break up any clumps of baking powder. Get the salt evenly distributed. Looking good. All right, now I just need 2 more ingredients. I have 3 tablespoons of melted butter here. And then our last ingredient is 1/2 cup of warm water. Just gonna stir this up until it starts to form a nice dough. And we're gonna pour it out here on my board. I'm just gonna work this into a nice dough, get everything incorporated together. You could do this in your KitchenAid if you wanted to. All right, we are going to make this into 8 equal pieces. Just gonna use my bench scraper. They don't have to be perfectly equal. And then we're gonna roll each of these into a ball. You don't have to make homemade tortilla shells, but it is a money saver, and they have such better ingredients in them. If you look at the back of tortilla shells at the grocery store, the list is about 1 mile long with preservatives and all kinds of lovely ingredients you might not want. I mean, I'm not gonna lie and say we never get them because we get them all the time. but when I can, it's so nice to make homemade fresh ones, and then you know exactly what you're getting. I'm gonna finish this last one up, then we're gonna cover these up with a towel, and they're going to rest here for about 15 minutes, and then we'll be ready to cook them up. So now we're gonna move on to our refried beans. I have all of these lovely beans left over from the other day, and I'm just gonna season them and mash them up in this cast iron pan, and we're gonna make a little treat and have some refried beans. I'm gonna cook my refried beans in butter. I think traditionally refried beans should be cooked in lard. I don't have lard on hand. If I did, that would be absolutely delicious. So if you have lard, go ahead and help yourself. You could do lard, oil, whatever you like. I'm gonna use butter. So I'll start by putting some butter in the pan, then I'm gonna pour in my beans and start seasoning them. These beans were already cooked in onion and garlic yesterday, so they have a little bit of that fresh onion and garlic flavor. You could put more fresh onion and garlic in if that's what you prefer. For me, I like to layer my flavors, so since I already did fresh onion and garlic yesterday, today I'm gonna use my powdered onion and garlic. And that just gives a little bit of a different flavor of the same ingredients and layers that flavor on. And now I'm gonna try them and see how they are. They definitely need more salt, so I'm gonna add that in. And I'm just gonna keep mashing as we go. Once these get all heated up, I'll try them one more time and see if we think they're okay. All right, now that we're done with our refried beans, I'm just moving them to the back so that they stay warm, and I'm gonna get my meat going in a cast iron pan. After our meat is thoroughly cooked, if it's extra greasy, sometimes I will drain out any grease, and then we're gonna season it up with some taco seasoning. I don't use the packets from the store. I think it's a waste of money, plus they have preservatives in, so I just make my own, or if I don't have any that I've made on hand, I'll just add in the different ingredients until it tastes good. I'll put a recipe down below though for some homemade taco seasonings if you'd like to make your own. All right, we're gonna roll out our tortilla shell. You wanna try and get it as nice and thin as you possibly can. I know that's difficult when you don't have a tortilla press, but I don't have one. So this is just what we're gonna do. I'd like to have a tortilla press. It's on my wish list. So hint, hint, Ethan, Christmas is around the corner. You wanna make sure you get it at least 1/8 of an inch thin, if not thinner. I think the thinner it is, the better. Now we want to put this on a very, very hot pan. I'm going to use my cast iron. You want to make sure it's not cool when you put it on, or else it's just not going to puff up and look beautiful. All right, now that our tortilla shell is off the stove, I'm going to show you how we're going to assemble our tacos. We're gonna throw on some ground beef, and then I happen to have baby spinach. You could do shredded lettuce, cabbage, whatever kind of green you like or have. Some diced tomato, a little bit of shredded cheese. I'm gonna put in some sour cream because I like that. And then I have some salsa verde that we canned up from out of our garden earlier this year. This is our absolute favorite salsa. And I'm just gonna serve this with a big dollop of refried beans on the side, and that's all there is to it. I'm afraid to take a bite of it though, because it's gonna be messy. I don't know how you can eat tacos and not have them be messy, so just bear with me. I love fresh tacos. Tacos are one of our favorite meals. We do some kind of a taco, burrito, enchiladas, probably once a week. This is another recipe that is pretty simple. You can use up a lot of ingredients you have around the house, whatever kind of fresh veggies you want to put in here. You could change out the beef and do chicken if that's what you have on hand, but it's a good way to use things up, and it's a good, quick weeknight meal that's always a hit with the whole family. All right, we are on our very last meal of our 5 budget meals, and this one is something that I could make almost at any point and have all the ingredients on hand because they're all pretty much pantry staples for me. This is a sweet potato curry. It uses rice and canned beans and canned tomatoes, and as a bonus, it's super easy to make. So let me show you how to do it. The first thing I'm going to do is peel and dice a sweet potato. I'm just going to use one large sweet potato. If you have a larger family or you just want to make some extras to throw in the freezer for later, you could do more sweet potatoes. All right, I have some fresh ginger here that I just keep in the freezer and pull it out when I need it. And I am going to take off maybe like this much right here to use, so maybe like an inch piece. But I'm going to prep it first by peeling it with the back of my spoon, or the side of my spoon, I guess is what you would say. And the peel just comes off real easy, just like that. It would come off even easier if it wasn't quite so frozen. All right, now you could chop this or grate it, whichever you prefer. I'm going to chop it today. I like the actual bite of the ginger when it's in pieces like this. I think it kind of is nice. Now I'm going to do a couple cloves of garlic. I'll just prep these right now before we go over to the pot. I'm going to use my garlic press for these. All right, now that we have everything prepped and ready to go, I'm going to start assembling our curry. To do that, you just need to come right over here to our stove. I'm going to get a little butter melting in my pot. All right, I'm going to get my sweet potatoes in, and my ginger, and my garlic. Try not to spill them. Okay, now we're going to put our spices in and let those start toasting as well. So I have coriander, turmeric, cumin. Could also use cumin seed if you have that. Red pepper flakes. And we're going to stir it up. I love this curry because it's a nice light fresh curry. We're going to add in a can of chickpeas. These were just rinsed and drained. A can of diced tomatoes. I'm going to put in a little bit of coconut sugar for sweetness. You could use honey or maple syrup if you wanted, about a tablespoon or two. And some salt. And lastly, a can of coconut milk. All right, we're just going to cover this up and let it simmer down for about 20 minutes until the sweet potatoes are fork tender. We have one last ingredient to add, and that is just some baby spinach. You could tear it up. These are small enough. I'm just going to dump them in, and then the heat of the curry is going to wilt those up nicely. If you don't have spinach, you could always do kale or some other kind of a dark leafy green, but that extra green adds some nutrients and a little bit of a different texture, and it definitely adds to the dish, so I would not omit it. I am going to start with a little bit of rice here, and I believe this is jasmine rice. I just cooked this on the stove top. I'll ladle our curry over the top. I'm going to garnish this with a little bit of fresh cilantro. If you don't like cilantro, no big deal, just leave it off. I like it, and I think it adds just a little bit of freshness. And then we're gonna garnish with a squeeze of lime. Again, another thing you can leave off, but the acidity really helps this dish. I know it might not always be budget friendly though. All right, let's try it. A little bite of everything. That is a perfect cool weather meal. But at the same time, it's not heavy. It's fresh and bright with the ginger and the lime and the fresh cilantro. It has just a nice freshness to it. This is an absolutely delicious meal. If you don't like curries, I would still give this one a try because it's not like a heavy curry. It's definitely a brighter curry, and it's absolutely delicious. All right, so our grand total for all of these meals combined is $49.13. I'm gonna show that shopping list over here on the side of the screen, but I'm also gonna make a shopping list down below so you know exactly what you need for all of these meals and what pantry staples you might need as well. Again, if you follow some of the money-saving tips that I mentioned in this video, such as getting whole chickens, parting them out and making your own broth, you could bring that total down even more. Again, don't forget to head over to Seed and Sparrow Homestead and watch Kelsey's video as well. She's also sharing 5 budget-friendly meals that are sure to be delicious and healthy.